Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into one of Germany's most profound and really harrowing human dramas, the story of Marianne Bachmeier.
It's a tough one. This isn't just a legal case. It's a raw, kind of unfiltered exploration of a mother's unimaginable grief.
Exactly. And the justice system's failures and, an act of vengeance that just shook an entire nation.
Absolutely.
We've gathered quite a bit for you, articles, research, courtroom accounts, to really try and navigate the complex series of events that led a woman to, take the law into her own hands after suffering the ultimate loss.
Yeah.
Our mission here in this deep dive is to understand not just what happened, but really why it resonated so deeply, and the uncomfortable questions it still poses about justice, about compassion, and, the limits of human endurance.
Mm-hmm. And what's truly compelling here is how Marianne Bachmeier's story forces us to look beyond just the surface of a crime. We'll examine the harsh realities of her early life, the tragic details of her daughter Anna's murder.
Which is just awful.
It is. And the killer's disturbing history. And then that shocking event that unfolded in a Lübeck courtroom. Ultimately, we'll have to confront the profound societal reactions and the enduring legacy of a mother's desperate act.
Okay, let's unpack Marianne's journey then. She was born June 3, 1950, in Salzgitter, West Germany. Her early life was marked by, incredible difficulty. Can you maybe set the scene for her childhood?
Absolutely. Marianne's parents were refugees. They'd fled East Russia, an area now part of Poland and Russia in the chaos after World War II.
Right.
Her father, he was a former Waffen-SS soldier, a unit infamous for its role in Nazi atrocities, extreme discipline. He brought this strict, authoritarian, and frankly, often brutal military discipline right into their home.
Wow.
And on top of that, he struggled with severe alcoholism. It created an incredibly tense, unstable environment.
That sounds like an incredibly harsh upbringing. So how did growing up in that kind of authoritarian home, especially with her father's background, how did that clash with Marianne's own personality?
Oh, it was a direct collision. Marianne had this sort of naturally free-spirited and independent nature, completely at odds with the rigid conservative values her parents were trying to impose.
I can imagine.
Yeah, it created constant conflict, a deep sense of not belonging. It really fueled her rebellious streak from a very early age.
And this conflict, it escalated, led to her parents' divorce.
It did. And then she moved in with her mother, who pretty quickly brought an abusive stepfather into their lives.
Oh, no. What was the impact of that new dynamic on Marianne?
Well, what's truly heartbreaking is that her mother consistently sided with the stepfather, often blamed Marianne for the family's troubles.
Really?
Yeah. And this ultimately led to Marianne being kicked out of her home during her adolescence. This period just left her with these deep emotional scars, a sense of betrayal, and a very, very challenging path forward into adulthood, feeling abandoned, unloved.
Moving into her early adult years, Marianne just continued to face these immense struggles. By 16, she had her first unplanned pregnancy, then another at 18.
Right. And both times, feeling she just couldn't properly care for them, she made that agonizing decision to give the children up for adoption.
And devastatingly, during her second pregnancy, she was also sexually assaulted.
It's clear she was sort of adrift, searching for stability, for purpose, amidst all this hardship. Eventually, she found work as a bartender in Lübeck, that historic city in northern Germany.
Okay.
This job kind of immersed her in the city's nightlife, a world she seemed to embrace, and she lived in an apartment right above the bar. It gave her a sense of independence, maybe, but also a certain isolation.
And this is where Marianne's story takes this really pivotal, determined turn. She became pregnant a third time with Christian, the bar manager. But this time, she made an unequivocal decision. She would keep this child. After Anna Bachmeier was born, November 14, 1972, Marianne actually underwent sterilization.
Yeah, a deeply personal commitment to dedicate herself entirely to Anna. That was her line in the sand, you could say.
That resolve is striking. So as a single mother, she often brought little Anna with her to the bar.
She did. And Anna grew into this lively, cheerful child, seemed to inherit her mother's free spirit. Marianne's parenting style was, unique. She treated Anna almost like a small adult, perhaps a reflection of her own difficult childhood. From an outsider's perspective, especially those with more traditional views, this sometimes led to perceptions of neglect. Marianne struggled intensely, balancing the demands of work and motherhood.
And it wasn't just external judgment, was it? Marianne herself had doubts.
Absolutely. She even considered adoption for Anna at one point, wrestling with whether she was truly doing right by her daughter. But in the end, she chose to raise Anna.
Thankfully, Christian, Anna's father, he stepped up, became a supportive friend, a part-time caregiver.
Right. Despite the sort of unconventional nature of their family, Marianne, Anna, and Christian forged this unique, if sometimes precarious, bond there in Lübeck. Found a kind of fragile happiness together, almost like an indie film, as you mentioned in the prep.
Yeah, fragile is the word. Because that peace shattered on May 5th, 1980. Anna was just 7 years old. Marianne, tired from a night shift, told Anna to get ready for school and then went to bed. There'd even been a small argument the day before, apparently.
This is where the story takes its just absolutely heartbreaking turn.
Yeah.
Anna's friend had already left for school, so Anna, instead of going alone, decided to head back home.
Okay.
On her way, she encountered Klaus Grabowski, a 35-year-old butcher, a neighbor. Anna knew him. She often went to his apartment to play with his cat. This seemingly innocent encounter.
Yeah.
It was about to become a nightmare.
Grabowski lured Anna to his apartment. There, he sexually assaulted her, and then, in just a chilling act to silence her, he strangled her with a pair of pantyhose.
The level of brutality, it's hard to comprehend. Immediately after the crime, Grabowski desperately tried to cover his tracks. He put Anna's tiny body into a cardboard box,
Oh, God.
put it on his bicycle, rode to a riverbank. There, he hastily dug a shallow grave and buried her. The casual, almost methodical attempt to dispose of her is just deeply disturbing.
But the cover-up didn't last long. Grabowski, in a moment that's kind of hard to parse, maybe panic, maybe some warped sense of conscience, he confessed the horrific crime to his fiancée.
And she did something extraordinary.
Yes, she immediately went to the police, an incredible act of bravery.
Absolutely crucial. This decision by his fiancée led directly to his capture. Police, acting on her information, found a note Grabowski had left for her at his apartment. In it, he pleaded with her not to leave him, asked her to meet him at a specific bar they frequented.
So the police staked out the bar.
They did, and when Grabowski arrived, they were there to arrest him.
To really get why the public reacted so intensely to Marianne's later actions, we have to confront Klaus Grabowski's disturbing past. He wasn't a first-time offender, was he?
Not even close. His history was a damning indictment of systemic failures. Grabowski had this disturbing pattern of sexual assault, previous convictions back in 1970 for assaulting a 6-year-old girl,
6 years old.
and again in 1975 for assaulting 2 other girls. Psychological evaluations determined he suffered from an abnormal sexual drive and a profound difficulty controlling his impulses. He was essentially a documented repeat offender with a severe psychological disorder.
So a known offender, deemed to have an abnormal sexual drive, was released after chemical castration, but crucially without any psychological therapy. What does that tell us about how they understood rehabilitation back then, the system's responsibility?
That's precisely where the profound questions begin, isn't it? It highlights this critical systemic flaw, treating a symptom without tackling the root cause.
Right.
The belief that just a chemical intervention alone could cure such deep-seated impulses. Without mental health support, it was a dangerous oversight. It suggests a deeply incomplete understanding of criminal psychology at the institutional level. The system treated the physical but ignored the mind.
And this leads us to a critical, almost unbelievable failure in the system. After his release, Grabowski goes to a urologist, claims he'd had therapy, was ready to reverse the chemical castration because he wanted to start a family with his fiancée. What happened?
The doctor incredibly believed him, didn't check Grabowski's medical or criminal records. Just a shocking lapse.
Unbelievable.
As a result, in March and April of 1980, just weeks before Anna's murder, Grabowski started receiving testosterone injections to reverse the effects of the chemical castration. The hormones were back, and tragically, so were his unchecked urges. It's such a stark example of how one oversight can have devastating consequences.
And as if that wasn't infuriating enough, Grabowski's defense at trial presented this truly shocking claim about 7-year-old Anna. What exactly did they argue?
Oh, his defense was just abhorrent. Grabowski actually claimed that Anna had provoked him during the assault.
Provoked him, a 7-year-old.
Yes. And then he claimed she blackmailed him for, I think it was the equivalent to $3 afterwards, threatening to tell adults. He tried to argue that this blackmail was what drove him to kill her, to silence her. Blaming a child victim in such a grotesque way, it just fueled the public's outrage even more.
When Marianne got the news about Anna's death, her world just imploded. Can you describe her immediate reaction, that agony
She was utterly devastated. Grief so profound she initially refused to identify her daughter's body. Overwhelmed by guilt, she blamed herself, agonizing over whether she'd somehow failed to protect Anna.
Oh, that's awful.
Or if Anna would have been safer with an adoptive family. This profound grief, though, it quickly turned into this burning rage as Grabowski's trial began.
That profound grief turning to rage, it must have just intensified as Grabowski's trial started in March 1981 in Lubeck. And the defense launched this scathing attack on Marianne's parenting. What was their strategy? How did it affect Marianne?
The defense just relentlessly attacked her parenting, cited Anna's presence in bars, accused Marianne of neglect. They leaned heavily on Grabowski's supposed mental illness and, as we discussed, those outrageous claims of Anna's provocation and blackmail to try and lessen his culpability.
And for Marianne?
For Marianne, this was like salt in an open wound. It painfully mirrored her own past experiences of abuse where victims, especially women, were so often blamed for what abusers did. She tried desperately to just stare down Grabowski in court, but her outbursts of fury were so intense she was repeatedly removed.
There was this critical moment on day 2, wasn't there? It gives insight into her escalating fury. The urologist who reversed Grabowski's castration testified, expressing deep regret, but it was the defense strategy that really pushed her over the edge.
Yes. The urologist's testimony expressing that profound guilt was a pivotal moment for the court. But for Marianne, the relentless defense strategy, still blaming Anna, making excuses for Grabowski, it just pushed her to the breaking point. This wasn't just about her daughter anymore, It felt like it was about every perceived injustice she'd ever faced every time a victim was blamed. The justice system in her eyes was failing Anna, just as it had failed so many others, including herself.
So we arrive at the fateful day 3, March 6, 1981. It was a cold, slightly rainy day in Lubeck. Marianne went to the courthouse. Her friends suggested they wait outside, apparently wanting to prevent Marianne from being alone with the defense team.
But Marianne, after maybe a moment of hesitation, she turned and walked back into the courtroom. Alone. She went directly to Grabowski, who was sitting in the defendant's box, and took a seat just 3 meters behind him.
And then,
in a moment that would be forever etched into legal history, she reached into her coat, pulled out a .22 Beretta pistol, and fired all 8 rounds. 7 shots hit Grabowski, killed him instantly.
The courtroom just erupted in chaos, but Marianne, she remained eerily calm.
Reportedly, yes. She dropped the gun, slowly raised her arms, ready to surrender to the court officers. No resistance. Christian, Anna's father, was also there, stunned, apparently exclaimed, "She did it. She actually did it."
Wow. Marianne Bachmeier became an overnight sensation across Germany. Public reaction was immediate, deeply divided, yet a huge portion of the population saw her as a tragic hero, someone who delivered vigilante justice. What does that tell us about societal trust in the justice system back then?
It speaks volumes, really. This widespread support suggests a perceived crisis of confidence in the justice system. Many people empathized with her overwhelming grief, felt her actions were justified given Grabowski's horrific past and those systemic failures that, enabled Anna's death.
Right.
It raised that fundamental question. When the system fails, where do individuals turn for justice? Is there ever a moral justification for taking the law into your own hands?
And the support for Marianne was incredible. A campaign raised funds for her legal defense, a really significant sum, hundreds of thousands of German marks at the time. Meanwhile, in custody, Marianne herself, just overwhelmed, made multiple suicide attempts.
Yeah, it was a very dark time for her. Her own trial was understandably intense. The prosecution argued for premeditated murder. They cited evidence she'd bought the gun, even practiced shooting in the bar's basement, painted a picture of a calculated act.
But Marianne denied that.
Vehemently, she claimed she bought the gun for self-defense, felt unsafe after Anna's death, and only carried it that day because she felt vulnerable. And crucially, back in 1981, German courthouses didn't have weapon checks. That's how she got it in.
Ultimately, the court delivered a really complex verdict. Marianne was found guilty of manslaughter, not premeditated murder. How do they explain that distinction, given how deliberate the act seemed?
Well, the judges acknowledged her profound grief, her immense emotional distress. They recognized these factors profoundly impacted her actions. While the act was intentional, they determined it wasn't pre-planned in that cold, calculated way needed for a murder conviction. It was seen more as an explosion of raw, unbearable emotion.
So the sentence reflected that?
Yes, she was sentenced to 6 years in prison, along with mandatory psychological treatment.
It's striking, isn't it? The court recognizing her emotional state, even after such a violent act. But the story didn't end there. Marianne was released after serving only 3 years, June 1985, due to good behavior. That must have sparked even more debate.
Oh, indeed. It reignited that whole public conversation about the balance between rehabilitation and punishment, and whether her sentence truly fit the crime in the public's eyes. It's just a testament to the powerful hold her story had on the national consciousness.
After her release, Marianne continued to be this figure of public fascination. She gave numerous media interviews, and she explained her primary purpose in shooting Grabowski wasn't just revenge.
Right. She said it was to stop him from spreading lies about Anna. She even made this provocative statement, saying she might not have shot him if he had apologized to her that day. She just wanted him to stop dishonoring her daughter's memory.
She sold her story to magazines, which inspired the film Anna's Mother, tried to find a fresh start.
Yeah, she remarried in 1985, moved to Nigeria, but that new life was short-lived. Divorced after 5 years, eventually returned to Germany. It seemed her attempts to escape her past were largely unsuccessful. The weight of her actions, the tragedy of Anna's death, it just followed her.
Sadly, her personal story ends with another tragedy. Marianne was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. She passed away on September 17th, 1996, only 46 years old.
And her final wish?
Her final wish was to be buried next to Anna, her beloved daughter. A really poignant, deeply moving end to such a tumultuous life defined by love, loss, and that extreme act of vengeance.
If we sort of connect this to the bigger picture, Marianne and Anna's story remains this enduring, powerful testament to a mother's fierce love. And it raises these incredibly complex questions about personal justice versus the rule of law.
Definitely.
It highlights the deeply personal impact of crime and the moral quandaries that pop up when individuals, pushed to their absolute limits, try to rectify what they see as profound injustices.
This story really leaves us with profound questions, doesn't it? About the limits of grief, the effectiveness of judicial systems, where society draws the line when someone, pushed beyond endurance, takes justice into their own hands.
It forces us to consider the very definition of justice itself. Is justice served always the same as legal justice?
That desire for accountability is just palpable in her story. But it also begs the question, how do societies balance that raw human need for justice with the absolute necessity of maintaining the rule of law? It's a stark reminder of the emotional weight victims carry and the ongoing dialogue around crime, punishment, and the path, or sometimes lack thereof, to healing.
Absolutely. A really complex legacy.
Thank you for joining us on this incredibly compelling deep dive into Marianne Bachmeier's story. We hope this exploration has maybe offered you some new insights, perhaps a new perspective on the complex interplay of human emotion and the pursuit of justice.
It's certainly one that stays with you.
Until next time, stay curious, keep learning, and as always, thank you for listening to The Deep Dive.